So kind of describe the conversation you had with your dad in making the film, and was prior to this conversation, were you already used to talking with your dad about different things about his upbringing and stuff, or was this quite a turning point for how you understood and related with your dad?
I like to say that we always talk like on any topics.
Yeah.
We always do. But I guess it's just him opening up on history that I didn't know before. Because he thought, because obviously with the interview I did, essentially it was like an interview style documentary. But I basically trimmed all the parts to make it sound like a whole documentary style animation essentially. And asking certain specific questions that I didn't ask before, like, oh, how do you feel about these particular parts? Like, what was kind of coursing through your mind when going here? You don't really normally ask your parents how they feel. They kind of just...
That's a good point. Yeah.
They genuinely just, always check up on you, the fact that your parents. When you check on your parents and stuff, it's kind of like you flip it on them and it's like, wait, you're kind of not going to expect the answer, Like, maybe you'll have like a surface level response. Yeah, I'm good, I'm fine, everything's all right. But when you delve deep into it for a particular purpose, it's actually quite interesting. And I feel like I made sure that when I did ask the questions, I didn't ask too many deep questions, but it's just genuine questions that I wouldn't ask my parents, or my dad in this case. So it really helped kind of understand how he was going through certain things. Although the whole actual interview was an hour and a half, I had to literally trim it to like, what? Was it 3.5?
Yeah, I feel you.
You're stressed.
That's what my podcast experience has been like, especially starting off with my Faith Talk podcast.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Literally, yeah.
It's like a lot of good gems dropped in it, and I would like to touch up on it and refine it, because originally I was meant to actually do the thing you're doing, like raw media, like a proposal of a segment of my dad's Mygration film and try and expand on it. I was planning on doing that, but then of course I did thought, let me try and refine the film a bit more and actually have a bit more of a... Although it's great what it is now, I know I could have done a better job in terms of making it more, meshing the animation well with the actual visuals. Because I know at the time I was given, I felt like even with the extension, it still felt rushed to me, like as a self-critic.
I feel you. Yeah.
So I really wanted to like refine it and do what I can, because I know the program you have up until 30 to actually apply for it. So I know that time is there, but I don't want to wait too long, because that's like another 7 years from now. I want to make sure I have something ready so I can present and then have the proposal and everything. So I got the details and kept it on tab so that I know I have something to work towards. So that's always like a motivation there. But the conversation generally was like, it wasn't what I expected, definitely. I wasn't expecting the answer, to be honest. There was some stuff I knew, but it was unlocking certain things in his mind that I managed to apply in the film. Some parts it didn't show because it was too long. But with the whole production team, I can imagine that it would be something quite enjoyable. I think anyone would like to watch something like that, to be honest. You don't get you don't get a lot of those, because animated documentaries are quite new in a way. They're not really shown. They're not really taken like as a go-to in terms of communicating a message. Normally animation is seen as just a form of just theatre practice or drama or a particular show. Soap drama, but
it's a form of journalism when you think about it. It is still a legitimate form of journalism.
It is,
Bro, I could go on a whole other tangent on animated documentaries, because I don't know if I told you, but my final dissertation was actually focused on how Black animators have used the medium of animated documentaries to communicate various ethnic experiences. So I don't think I sent it to you to read. I'll send you the PDF so you can read it. But as you can, so this is the segment where we talk about various animators that inspire us. For me, particularly as a Black animator, if I'm perfectly honest, it's not been easy to find role models. I know of he's quite an elderly man now, but one of the early animators in Disney, I forgot his name. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he helped make some iconic, animated movies like, I think he helped on The Hunchback of Notre Dame and some other 2D classics. His name has escaped me.
But
yeah, he's
like, did he animate animals really well? that type of guy?
I think so, yeah.
Because all I can think of is probably Aaron Blaze. Like I can think of, he's quite old. But yeah, I know he works on it.
Yeah, that's not the name. It's another guy. His name has escaped me, but he's one of the more popular examples of black animators. But in terms of British ones, it was very hard for me to find them. Yeah. But you know, I found one. I found two black female animators, British. One called Mary Martins, who is Nigerian, and another who has a Jamaican heritage, Jessica Ashman. So shout out Jessica Ashman if she's ever listening to this. I engaged with her on Instagram recently. But I included them in my dissertation, looking at their animated documentaries. One of Mary's explored her childhood memory of being in Nigeria in the late 80s, when she was about 4 years old. And similar to what you did, Hashim, she used collaging. And I think collaging is a great, I really dissect this a lot in the essay, but it's a merging of the real experience and a child's perceived experience. So me and you can resonate with how animation delves into the subconscious and how, you know, all of us as people have our own internal worlds. And it's the abstract use of color and image that can really have can create an emotive connection with the audience in a way that live film might not be able to. And so I feel like something like that can really transcend, you know, cultural barriers that, you know, the audience might have with the person that the documentary is about, you know. Animation is a very universal medium. The images, colors, and symbols referenced are much more universal. So there's not as much of a racial or cultural barrier in the audience connecting with the people in the documentary. So, so those are some of my examples that I've looked up to. But yeah, kind of delve into what animators have inspired you. Are any of them also sort of black? Do you kind of relate with them culturally or anything like that?
All right, cool. So in animation, I remember I had the same question with my lecturer. I don't know if you know, you probably know Stuart? Stuart from Derby.
Good old Stuart, yeah. I like Stuart.
He's a good lad, yeah. I remember he asked me the same thing, like, obviously with the interview, right, the process. To be honest with him, I didn't tell him any convincing animators I looked up to. I was like, I'm in it, I like this form, I like this art form, let me just get into it straight, you know? But of course, they need to give some examples. A lot of animators I told him really were stuff from the internet, like internet animators that I watched on Newgrounds and stuff. A lot of like all these flash animation type of guys. So I did list out a few when I was younger, like Alan Becker, Flying Panda.
Oh yeah, Alan Becker's great, yeah.
Great animator, you know, and all these kind of like internet ones, because I absorbed YouTube a lot.
Yeah, and Jazzer's probably the most example.
Yeah, Jazzer's a popular one as well, yeah, because he was kind of like, although I didn't grow up watching him, I kind of saw him more like during, I guess something like sometime, I guess towards end of my secondary school years, I was more exposed to Jazzer. But Alan Becker was like from early, it was like back when I was year 6 or 7. You go on to see a lot of internet animators, so I remember I just listed a bunch of those. He had no idea what I'll talk about. And then he saw them. He's like, oh, this is pretty cool stuff. Yeah. So it was like, because it's just all internet stuff. It wasn't like a traditional classic, big industry people. But right now, I'd say that because obviously the LaShawn Thomas, right? He was very much like, he did a lot of like storyboard layout. He did a majority of the storyboards and the layouts for directing the Boondocks, right? So it's from seasons 1 to 2 or seasons 1 and 3.
Yeah, Aaron McGruder, yeah, I looked at him. I think I told you that I did an essay on him in my second year.
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah.
Something on him like that. And because he just did the story, right? But with the actual animation director and all that type of stuff, it was generally, LaShawn Thomas. And what I like about him, he literally delves both Eastern agricultural visuals with the Western style and how they merge that together. Similar to Avatar as well, how that's not really an anime, it's kind of like a Western Nickelodeon show, but it has a lot of anime influence.
Yeah.
So those
definitely.
Yeah, so I was kind of into that type of stuff, and it was like, and even with LaShawn Thomas, he even booted his own actual anime series called Cannon Busters, which is on Netflix now. It's been on Netflix for like a past year now. But seeing like an actual black, actual creative producing an anime, like with the whole animation staff and team, but having his credits, like, that was quite inspiring, like to see his journey. But then looking at that when I was younger, I was like, oh, this is really cool stuff. You know, in terms of black animators, I wouldn't say I got too many, to be honest. It genuinely is. I'm very much inspired by what I like, and I do like to actually research more, because this would be good for this is like good research as well. You know, finding out how do they communicate their own voices, right, with the medium of animation. Recently, now I've been checking out for the last year this animation studio in Japan called the Diriye. So they're like it's a first black-owned studio in Japan, and they're a small studio. They do commercials and TV ads and stuff like that, and they even work on some anime as well, some segments of certain big shows. And they produce like the 2D art style, that type of stuff, traditional style animation, all that type of thing. And for the past year, they've been creating a lot of attraction, like now, because they worked on a few series. They did the Weeknd's music video recently. So he's a huge artist as well. So they funded that.
Oh yeah. Oh, for Snow Child,
Snow Child. Yes, that song. The animated visuals. They produced the whole system. So that's why he probably had a lot of influence. If you look at it. So I've been watching them for the past year, and that's genuinely like someone I'm looking up to. They have like a blog as well. They do on a weekly basis, just talk about the studio, their practices, certain themes, topics. So I'm really digging that type of project, or essentially what they do, especially from a black creative. And it's quite interesting to see that as well. Yeah. So I really enjoy what they do. Yeah. So they're cool. Yeah, Starjack. I think you a few of their videos and stuff, and check them out.
Yeah. Send me some links to that studio and LeSean Thomas's work. Oh yeah, Floyd Norman. That was the guy I was thinking of earlier.
Okay.
Floyd Norman. I don't know if you've heard of him. But yeah, he's probably one of the more famous examples of black animators in history. But yeah, I think even the examples we touched on there in terms of black animators and what they've worked on, there seems to be this interesting fusion of black and Asian culture, and, you know, how the black community resonates with anime. And even growing up, you know, I know a lot of black friends who just love anime, you know. So that's an interesting cultural link. And I think, in terms of, from what I know so far and what we've discussed, it seems that us as black animators, we're finding our voices through the merging with, you know, Asian audiences and Asian culture and anime culture. Like that's played kind of a big role in quite a few black animators kind of expressing themselves. So I think that's interesting. And also, where was I going with this? In terms of independent animation and us telling our stories as black people, I think, hip hop is also another thing. You know, me and you can probably think of, various shows like The Regular Show that I've had black, you know, famous rappers guest on there, like Tyler the Creator, and, even in the Boondocks, loads of references to the hip hop scene. What other popular shows did we watch growing up?
I remember Rick and Morty. They featured a bit of A Boogie.
Yeah, and Logic as well. They featured Logic as well. So
yeah, they featured a few.
Yeah. So I like that, and I can see that there's a lot of similarities between animation and hip hop, and how these two sort of art forms share a lot in the sense that they're both relatively new art forms. They're very indicative of the modern age that we're living in. And there's a free spirit that flows in both media forms, you know, where, you know, in animation, you've got all these different caricatures of, you know, what it means to be a man, what it means to be, black. And, you know, you've got animation, which really can heighten that and stretch the imagination of, I guess, excellence. So that's another interesting relationship that I'm trying to merge. And I don't know if you've seen much of my animations, but you might have seen that I like to merge animation with spoken word. And even this short film that I'm working on now, which I've now called Mental Roots. So the short film I'm working on now is called Mental Roots, same as the podcast. I'm still exploring the merging of spoken word and rap and how that can really complement animation well in terms of kind of expressing my cultural voice. So moving forward, you found out for yourself that animation is a great way for you to express your own heritage, your own unique identity. What are your goals moving forward? How do you want to keep pushing the art form of animation to express yourself culturally? What would you like to see more in the animation industry in terms of representation? Give us your closing thoughts on that.
Alright, cool. So plans I have really is I'd love to make my own films, series at the moment I'm not sure, but I would like to focus on films in terms of like, getting out, good, I guess you can kind of say like pieces of work out there, although depending on how well that goes, I could potentially think of a series in the future, but I do want to get films out there, I'm not going to try and go with the long films. I do want to see, because I know the attention span of this generation, they're not willing to watch.
You're speaking truth, bro. Yeah. So
I would like to like capture a good, concentrate, like, good amount of time, like a chunk of time where someone would actually take the time to watch it, maybe on a lunch break at work, maybe on the, whilst going for a run, whatever, I don't know, on the treadmill, or even just chilling at home, right? Just anything that would be convenient for them. But, I would like to actually delve a few topics. Some of it would be obviously fictional fantasy. Then other parts I'd like to kind of like give back to my community as well. Because, like I said before, I haven't seen much Islamic content growing up, to be honest. A lot of it was maybe just, things I used to watch a lot when I was younger was like stuff like Zaki, essentially like this blue animated bear. It was like an Australian production company.
Okay.
They used to like teach Islam through that, like basic stuff. But I noticed in the Islamic world, a lot of it is just the basic, really, the rudimentary level, like kids stuff. They don't really have a lot of content for teens, young adults, and older. They're quite content with that particular audience because they kind of see animation like they see it just for kids, which is quite ignorant because it should be a form that anyone can enjoy. And because of that, we're quite behind in the aspect, I remember I used to do an internship with, I used to do like this graphic design internship before uni, and I was helping out one of my employer essentially with a few apps or a few app designs because he's like an app development company. He used to tell me a lot like, bro, when you go uni to do animation, make sure you get as much as you can because our communities are suffering.
That's true.
Like genuinely, our kids genuinely don't know, like they're more gravitate towards what's given, like because this is pumped out all the time, like all this content, right? We're not given variety. We're not given much variety, like with perspectives as much. We're kind of the same thing, but different people, different narratives, right?
Definitely.
And it's important to allow kids to kind of grow and kind of figure out themselves through characters. But they look at characters like their role models sometimes.
Real talk.
So, especially if they come from a very insecure place, whatever. To have something like that to kind of plant seeds, to kind of like understand themselves a bit more, is very important. So I do have plans to produce stuff for my community to give back, of course, but I guess it would come with me experimenting with my style, experimenting with how I communicate my message, my developing a personal voice, getting content out there. But ultimately to enjoy what I produce, man, that's the main thing. That's what really counts, And there's a lot of hurdles, but I'm willing to go down the route.
And it's like you touched on something important there, which is, enjoying it. Like, especially, the things you touched on in terms of the representation you want to see in animation in terms of Islam and faith and, obviously what it means to be an ethnic minority and all these various experiences that you have that you want to see more in the animation industry. What I found with me is that sometimes, I don't know if you relate to this, but sometimes I feel like it's a burden and it's like, that's even more pressure on me to be like innovative and like, if I don't have good ideas, then it's not just me I've let down. Maybe it's my community or my family that I'm letting down because, so I think obviously this can apply to any sector in society, regardless of what profession you have, whether you're a lawyer or someone working in journalism. If you are an ethnic minority, there's always this sense of, I need to do well in telling the other side of the story. And, there's this sort of like, I'm sure you heard that in your life that you have to work twice as hard as your peers to make it and stuff like that. And we have all these things that we absorb, and it's like, sometimes that does take a toll on us mentally, but we need to come back to the drawing board and think, okay, why did I start doing this art form in the first place? I did it because I enjoy it. I want to express my story. It's not always about carrying the weight of everyone on my shoulders, you know. It's just, I got to do what I enjoy, and it's got to come from that place, you know. So I definitely resonate with what you just said regarding that. And yeah, I kind of relate in terms of the religion in animation as well. And I kind of feel the same with Christian animation. There's probably more examples of animated content for children because Christianity seems to be more popular in Western society. But even then, like, I can't think of any Christian animation that targets, you know, like you said, young people, teenagers. And to be fair, a lot can be said about the animation industry on a whole, right? There is a lot of content out there for children, but where's the respected animated content for, you know, young people / adults? And by that, I don't mean The Simpsons and Family Guy and all that comedy stuff. Like, we're talking stuff that actually evokes deeper emotions in you, you know, the independent filmmakers who are doing great animated documentaries on very nuanced topics. Like, I still feel like animation is a very high art thing where you don't really know much about the various independent things that are there unless you're actually interested in the industry. But the common consumer in regular society don't know about these sort of indie sort of animators, you know. They only know about the commercial stuff. And, you know, I that's kind of something I want to see change that. And it is changing, you know, with the internet. It's much more easier for independent animators to be recognized and to be entered on different platforms. Like what I'm doing now, the new creative scheme, my animation will be shown on BBC iPlayer and these bigger platforms. So the tables are turning a little bit, but that's kind of what I want to see more of, is that more nuanced perspectives will be told through animation and through the internet. So, yeah.
It's really cool stuff, honestly, because essentially how the shift is going, like you said, the internet. You essentially, as long as you have the equipment and you got an internet access, you can produce from literally a bedroom, and you don't need to worry about overhead and stuff. Like, we're in a time where, especially a lockdown, there's really no excuse to not produce, you know. Like, we have all the tools at disposal. This probably wasn't going to be a possibility 20 years ago. And just like the time really is now, man. It's just pretty much just having a perspective, understanding if you don't do it now, no one else is going to do it, you know. So I do relate. The burden part definitely is a big factor. It could demotivate you sometimes, but understand that enjoying the journey is very important, you know. Like, it's good to be ambitious, don't get me wrong, but it's good to know when to, like, you know, it's good to say no to the project sometimes when you feel like maybe your all is not, you know, because you may advance well in your career, but it may take a toll on yourself as like your brand, your identity, all these things. So being selective is very important as well for yourself as well as for your career or your reputation in this case. So it's pretty cool stuff, honestly. Like, it's just because that's the path of entrepreneurship as well, isn't it? Like, being self-made, or at least building something for yourself, right? It's like, it's not an easy task at all, you know. And being independent is like, the tools are there, it's so easy, but then anyone can do it, you know. So what makes you stand out is important, you know. So whatever you can produce, just try and do it, you know, the best you can, and always make sure you ask for feedback as soon as possible, so that at least you can be building up. That's it, man. But yeah, that's it. So I guess the way I want to look at it in terms of what I want to see more in the industry would just simply be like having like more a catalog to more, I guess, diverse content as well. You know, I guess the commercial stuff is very popular, but having other platforms so people can actually go out and dedicate and research certain things to learn a bit more about certain things would be important as well. Because you learn a lot through watching stuff, like, especially with animation stuff. This can educate a lot more than a book, possibly, you know, or a lot than a journal, an article and stuff. It's like our responsibility to do the research and then obviously produce it.
And not just do the research, but inform each other as well. I think again, this is just a micro example of a much bigger issue that we're looking at. Again, bringing it back to being black in Western society. Like, we need to help each other we need to pass each other information, right? Those of us who are more established in the industry, what are we doing to reach out to other people? What are we doing to make people know and make ourselves accessible to the next generation? You know, those who are just starting, you know, just like us, not too long ago, we were starting uni into this new world of animation. And it would be so cool if there's very accessible resources online where young black people who are trying to get into this industry where they might not see many people like them, they already see that there's initiatives out there to empower them. So it's like, okay, maybe I can flourish in this industry because I can see people succeeding in it and they're getting their voices out there. They've got these initiatives going. And speaking of initiatives, there's one called Visible in Visuals, right? You can I'll send you the link to follow them on Instagram. But Visible in Visuals, they're a new initiative of black British animators, well, ethnic minority animators. And I think they're about a team of 4 at the moment. Shout out Tanya J. Scott and some of the other people in there as well, if they ever listen to this. But they've started a segment on the Squiggly podcast. I don't know if you've heard of the Squiggly podcast.
No.
By Ben Mitchell. Ben Mitchell is an animator, and his podcast is quite big. He's a British animator, and has interesting conversations there. So he's a white guy, but he has allowed Visible in Visuals to start a little segment in his podcast, which talks about diversity and inclusion in the animation industry. So you can check out their podcast. They've just released their first kind of episode within that podcast.
Okay.
So that's the Squiggly Animation Podcast, and you'll find the Visible in Visual segment in there. So I'm following them on social media, and I'm still researching other initiatives, that other that are supporting young black creatives. There's another one as well. I'll see if I can find them. One sec. Oh, where are they? I think it's called Culture and Craft or something like that. Let me just search it up. Culture in the Craft. That's what it's called. So that's another podcast that's completely led by, quote unquote, ethnic minority sort of, designers who work in animation, games, VR and AR, digital art, visual effects. So they've been going for a while. They've had an interview with Jessica Ashman a while back, and they've done like reviews on, you know, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse as well. And, you know, they critique lots of sort of up-to-date things that are happening in the animation world in terms of representation and empowerment and things like that. So, there's all these different things. There's also the Black Woman Animator podcast, which I think is mainly based on the Black female American experience in animation. So there's quite a few podcasts out there, but it's just a question of how do young upcoming artists know about these things? Yeah. You know, so it's like, I'd like to see more accessibility in that. But yeah, that's where my headspace is at the moment. And even if you're not an animator listening to this, but you're a young black person who's, passionate about any industry, you can take what we've discussed today and apply it to your own practice and think about ways that you can share information that you are gaining in your field, because we need to empower each other in these times, as young people who are trying to break cycles and break new ground. And we should create them role models that we want to see. You know, a lot of us know what it was like growing up, looking at the TV, watching our favorite cartoons and different dramas. And, you know, looking back, we wish we saw more positive role models to inspire us on the media. Now's our time to be the role models that we never saw. And so that's kind of my big, statement that I want to leave with. Are there any closing words that you have, or you feel like you've said everything that needs to be said?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I don't know what I said. I'm going to watch this back and see what I said, but yeah, because I don't do stuff like this, to be honest. It's good. I think it's important to kind of get you know, it's good to be in conversations with other creatives as well, you know, so like bounce back concepts and ideas, understanding that, because I'm in an environment that's not really creative at all. I'm kind of like big brother, just getting by, doing what I need to do. So it's just a pleasure. It's quite a pleasure to speak to you today, you know, just having a few ideas and concepts just thrown out there, you know, and then overall it's just a nice conversation, man. Just hopefully this project that we will end up doing, God willing, does really work out, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you on this current project I'm doing. So, it's interesting this age we live in on with internet collaboration and just transferring files on Google Drive. I look forward to that.
Yeah, that's definitely. We're just doing what we got, you know. Like before, USB drive, you have to travel, all that stuff, go to class, but now I just send stuff. It's just crazy time. Man.
Okay. Well, so give your details. Where can people follow you on social media? What's the website? Just give the address, and then just all the platforms you're on. Any things that you want people to check out or look forward to in the future, just plug all the information you want.
Okay, so pretty much I'm most active now on Twitter. So a lot of the time I'm just reposting a lot of art I like, a lot of stuff, content I like. So I'm just on there pretty much. That's my inspiration hub, Twitter. But in terms of posting content and stuff, you can follow my Instagram, which is just Diriye by Diriye Animations. The same thing is for my website as well, www.h3animations.com. So pretty much my portfolio is there. I wouldn't say it's up to date yet, but I'm planning to update it because I do have my most updated content on my Instagram. But so you can just check me out there. And so far, I don't have nothing new that's up and coming, but I will definitely keep my social media posted on projects I'll be working on. But
that's good. And everyone, please follow him on Instagram. Let's support these young creatives and go on his website, check out the Mygration short film so that you know what we were talking about. And thanks everyone for listening to this episode. Take care. Again, DM me on Instagram or Twitter if this podcast is inspiring you in any way, or you just want to talk a bit more about what we've discussed. So take care, guys, and peace.